All righty, so here we go. So again, good afternoon, everyone. I am super glad to see you all. My name is Jasmine Edwards, and my role here is Officer for U.S. Equity and Indigenous Communities, where I work alongside Erin, who is actually the lead of our pillar. And so something about me is I'm really super passionate about working alongside leaders like yourselves who are really driven to make and improve the lives of others and outcomes for them, especially in marginalized communities. So I'm really thankful that you're all here today to figure out more information to help your application stand out. So I'm definitely going to hop into talking to you about MIT Solve and specifically how you can really put together a strong application for the 2025 Indigenous Communities Fellowship. So, gonna go ahead and jump right in. Alrighty, let's talk about what we do. So basically, MIT Solve is actually an initiative of MIT that began in 2017. And we started with looking at it from a global perspective, right? What we do is we connect with, in layman terms, is we connect with innovators, again, people like yourselves, with the support, with the funding and the networks that you all need to scale your solutions to specifically in your communities or where you're serving. And so our goal in that is to make sure we're driving lasting positive change and bridging the gap between challenges that you all are trying to solve and then the actionable solutions that you're bringing to the table. And so we run an open innovation challenge, and this here is a cohort model. All right, and you all can see the screen clearly, right? You don't see a thumbs up if you can see the screen clearly. Nothing's cut off. Okay, perfect. All righty, so about new voices. So here's really a snapshot of our impact thus far. And so we've selected over 330 solver teams across the globe. And I think that says a lot to the talent that we have here at Solve. And 50 representing 30 indigenous nations across the US and Canada. And I think that is an amazing number to represent the work that folks are doing in Indigenous communities across the world. And so with that being said, we're proud to report that 95% of overall solver teams are still operational to to this day. And that speaks again to the volume of the groups of innovators that you would join. And so we really place a strong emphasis on the person, right? We consider the whole person and your dedication and your passion to what you're doing. So this is where your unique voice and your unique ideas come to play. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about the Indigenous Communities Fellowship timeline. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and walk through the timeline a bit. Right now, you're in the process where you are submitting your application between now and April, right, of 2025, which is this month, right? Um, and between April and August, your submitted solution is going to be reviewed by expert judges. So basically, by this month, you would have already, not already, but hopefully you're working on submitting your solutions, you're looking over it, and you're taking the time needed to make sure that you have everything you want to submit. Again, moving to over the summer, when in September, those in September, we're going to be looking at the ones that are chosen for the cohort, will present their solutions in New York City. And this is, again, we're not sure just with how the climate is going overall. We want to make sure all solvers stay safe. So it's supposed to be in New York City, and as time goes on, we'll update you on if that location is still that place, or if it's going to be virtual or someplace different. But we'll keep you posted there. But anyway, so in September, that's when you're chosen, you present to everyone your solution, and then from there, and again, that is our anchor event. So this is also during the UN General Assembly at the same time. And so that's really exciting. So from there, you'll participate in a 9-month program, and that's until May of 2026, all right? And then at the end, you'll then regather for our flagship event called Solve at MIT, and we also call it SAM. And we lean in that type of flagship event, or our anchor event, we lean into your existing contacts, old and new stakeholders, to just really focus on that relationship building, so that you, as you're graduating from the program and you're going into alumni status, you have some really strong connections. Alrighty, so let's talk about the fellowship. So overall, just want to clarify that this fellowship is all about supporting Indigenous innovators who, like yourselves, who are addressing pressing community challenges, right? You do not have to be a tech expert. I want to make that clear, that you don't have to be. You just need a practical, impactful idea, right? You as a fellow would receive funding, you would receive mentorship, and receive tailored programming within that span of 9 months to help your solution succeed. And that's what we really want to happen. So this year, for instance, our leading question is, how can Indigenous innovators in the US and Canada build upon traditional knowledge and technology to meet the social, environmental, and economic goals of their communities? And you've seen that question being asked in the application, right? And so here are some of the dimensions that we're looking at, right? This year, our curiosity in solutions kind of lies in 3 specific areas. That includes energy sovereignty, Indigenous sovereignty, attained through the use of tech tools, think like, AI, digital infrastructure, et cetera. And then lastly, Indigenous learning. So with that being said, right, we want you to apply. I will repeat, we want you to apply even if you don't fit into these dimensions, because they're just starting points for you to think about, and just admitting a few folks. So it's starting points for you to think about, and for you to kind of base your knowledge on what maybe the surrounding ideas that we're looking for. With that being said, our core is supporting the innovators who are using tech in some form or fashion, and supporting their communities in some form or fashion, right, through social, environmental, and economic impact. So just know that, again, Indigenous technologies are very important, and all of those things of that nature. Alrighty, so let's talk about the solutions. So one of the questions we often get is, what kind of solutions are Solve looking for? What is it that we need to do? Is there something specific? Well, one of the things that we want to clarify is that you can be a for-profit or a nonprofit. You could be new, or you can, be already in existence, right? there are solutions where you're not even incorporated, right? That's what I mean by new. And that's fine. What's key is that we're looking for it to be impactful, feasible, and aligned with the community needs that you're saying you're serving. So, and when it comes to technology, and I mentioned it a little earlier, but when it comes to technology, while technology may be a part of it, it doesn't have to be the main driver. And I want to make sure you really understand that. We especially want to point out that we welcome solutions that leverage traditional, ancestral, and natural technologies and knowledge systems. That is very important, and that is different than what is normally seen in the current landscape of what we're working in. So we definitely want to see traditional, ancestral, and natural technologies. Alrighty, so what you get. So after being selected for the cohort, you definitely will be getting peer community of support within your own cohort. So you'll want to be leaning into your cohort for support. You also get to meet alumni and from around the world, really, and within your cohort. But it's really, you get access to a community of change makers like yourself, and it's something that is a very strong part to be within. And so with that being said, you also get a 10K prize and over 1 million, access to over 1 million worth of opportunities and additional prizes that become available, right? So beyond the funding, fellows really get what I mentioned earlier, access to just incredible value, right? Which is access to networks and mentors and just that global community. And plus, our post-selection programming really just ensures that the support continues after that initial award. Like just for instance, we just had our Indigenous communities summit that happened a week ago, and we had alumni there and we had current cohort members there, and it was really in Spokane, Washington, and it was a really great experience, and the feedback that we got. All righty, let's talk about working on your application, right? So we're going to talk strategy, and I just want to say that, your application, and you probably have gotten it from the hints of what I've been speaking about, but it's truly not just about filling out the forms. It's really your chance to tell your story. That's what we want to hear, is what is your story and the community that you're going to serve. So you want reviewers to really feel connected, to what you're doing and why. Getting started. Alrighty, so you want to start by creating a solver profile, right? And it's really straightforward. And you'll use it, this profile, you use it for this application for sure, and then any other future solve challenges that you may want to apply to. And so if you're applying with a team, make sure everyone's roles are clear in that, right? So, and also just kind of be ready to provide the basic details about your organization and your leadership, even if there's just you or if there's two people, right? And another thing that you'll want to just have as a note, if you're applying and there's multiple team members, you'll want to make sure that once you create a profile, that they also then create, like they have to create their own profile. So they won't be just logging into your one login, like there'll be a team, and then they'll end up creating their own profile in order to help do that. So with that being said, for creating things like that, there'll be a help email that you can email to get some technical assistance with that. Alrighty, so working on your application. So first thing first is you want to get started as soon as possible. If you have not already, you definitely want to go ahead and get started and focus on the required sections first, right? Because if you end up running out of time or you're really pressed, like you want to make sure that you at least have the required options filled out at the end of the time it is for you to submit your applications, right? So when you're doing that, you want to focus on clearly defining the problem that you're solving, right? And when we say clear, just make sure, because you're the knowledge holder of your solution. You know, you've had this in your mind. There's so much knowledge. There's so many things you want to say, and there's only so much space to say it, right? And so make sure when you're telling us the issue, work on giving us that, big, one sentence opener, or one paragraph opener that really hones down on this problem that you're solving. And then you want to outline your solution, right? So how does it work? Who does it serve? And then how it's different from what's out there. And maybe it's the first thing that has been out there. Maybe it doesn't exist, right? That's okay too, but just let us know about the research you've done on your solution. That way we really know your depth of knowledge on the solution that you're giving. And then lastly, just be honest about where you are in development and highlight any partnerships or tractions that you've built. And then don't forget to include your budget and your funding details. That's really essential, because if you're getting the funding right, we want to imagine what can 10K do for you and your community. Alrighty, so review and submit. Again, once you've drafted everything, make sure that you just take the time to review it. Sometimes we do the application, we're like, okay, I'm done, great, let me submit. But you want to make sure you double check for clarity, typos, whether your story kind of flows naturally. Maybe have someone outside of your organization read it, like a friend or a mentor, and they'll spot maybe some things that you might miss, or maybe a storyline that you might have told them about. And they're like, hey, why don't you add such and such? That would be a good addition, right? So just, if you can, have some outside eyes to look at it. And then please don't hit submit at the last minute if you can at all help it. Give yourself some breathing room just to go ahead and have that there. Right. And again, the deadline is April 17th. So you want to give yourself some time and at noon to submit it. All righty. All righty. So the criteria, really, it's overall, our judges evaluate based on 5 key criteria, which is alignment, the potential for impact, feasibility, an innovative approach, and inclusive human-centered design. So you want to make sure, and again, that has it on there, and this is recorded. So when you want to go back to look at it as well, you can. And of course, there's lots of information on our application site, but you just go ahead and look over those and just make sure that you're covering all of those key areas, and make sure that your application speaks to each of these directly. Alrighty, strengthening your application. So just answer you answer the required questions, and that's really good, right? Answering the required questions are very important, but the strongest applications also answer the optional as well, right? So if you want to stand out, just make sure you're specific, you're clear, and you avoid jargon, right? So there's lots that you can say. That's why you want to spend time to just do your application as best as you can. And support your claims with data, right? If you're saying there's something happening or a certain group is underserved in, X, Y, and Z areas, give us data or examples where you can. That's super helpful for us to be able to visualize what you're speaking of. And then also check out our website for past winning applications. They're great inspiration for you and just to, have a look at what's happened prior to you. And then above all, just make sure your passion for your community shines through. So some frequently asked questions, and I know we are on time, but frequently asked questions, we've kind of gathered some top facts for you. Again, I mentioned earlier, some of the ones are, do I need to be a nonprofit? And it's like, no, we take both for-profits and nonprofits. Some folks call themselves hybrids, right? People aren't even incorporated yet. So, you're welcome to apply. All right. So just apply. And, another question, what if my solution is early stage? That is totally fine too, right? We support solutions at various stages of development, right? And then also, how long will it take to complete the application? Again, it can take a day, or it could take you an hour, or it could take you, a week or longer, but it's all up to, how much time you want to put into it. And then, can you apply to multiple global challenges? Yes, you actually can. But if you're advanced to 2 global challenges at once, you're going to have to be asked to only select one challenge. Meaning, if you apply to Verizon's climate challenge that is open right now, and then also our 2025 Indigenous Innovators Program, and you got chosen to advance for both, you would only be able to choose one. And then the time commitment, we expect you to spend 25 hours over the course of 9 months. And that includes the coaching sessions, workshops, any events that we have virtually. And then we also expect, and again, I mentioned earlier, right now, the expectation is travel and attendance at MIT Solve flagship events. That is 4 days in New York in September, and then 4 days in Boston in May, and that's Solve at MIT. Given the current climate, again, we are always evaluating what is best for our innovators, so we'll keep you posted on that. All right, and then final reminders, just know that the deadline is April 17th at noon Eastern. So don't wait until the last minute, because sometimes technical glitches happen. And unfortunately, we won't be able to assist after the deadline as much as we may want to. So also just to remember to make sure your contact information is correct. You definitely don't want to miss any follow-ups. I have been guilty of putting in my email address and literally missing like one letter. And I'm like, I didn't get any emails. And they're like, here's the email that you shared. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's why, because I literally left off a letter. So just triple check, double check your emails, right? To make sure that you get that. All righty. And then lastly, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We may not have the answers to everything, but we're here to help. And, again, remember that MIT is more than just a funding opportunity. It's really a community of peer support and alumni around the world. So, and really upscaling and capacity building for you. So I'll go ahead and stop recording.